First, I'd like to just say thank you all for coming to the Women with Prostate Cancer discussion panel. Traditionally, prostate cancer has been viewed as a man's disease. Men get prostate cancer and men are the patients. The healthcare system has been getting better and better at providing support to men with prostate cancer beyond the hospital stay, such as the Psychosocial Resources Department at the Tom Baker here in Calgary. In addition, our communities are also actively supporting men through groups like Prostate, also here in Calgary, where men can come and learn about their disease and receive support from one another. More recently, there's been increasing awareness that diseases such as cancer do not affect people in a vacuum. For every man who receives a diagnosis of prostate cancer, there are also several friends and family members who are also affected. For partners, the diagnosis of prostate cancer can be particularly difficult. While the healthcare system in our communities have been steadily improving patient care and support, partners are still viewed as caregivers rather than co-patients. The support offered to women whose partners have prostate cancer is largely centered around the caregiving role in terms of instrumental burden and role changes. Less often is a woman asked, "How has prostate cancer affected you emotionally or spiritually?" Or, "How has prostate cancer affected your relationship with your partner?" Research suggests that women are deeply affected by their partner's diagnosis and treatment for prostate cancer, sometimes experiencing even greater distress than their partners. Women may therefore benefit from a more family-centered view of patient care, in which the definition of patient is broadened to include the individual with prostate cancer and his partner. The support and care that is currently offered to men should also be offered to women. So the purpose of today's panel is to raise awareness of the effects of prostate cancer on women. And we hope that this discussion will open up the lines of communication about this issue and also foster the development of supports for women affected by prostate cancer. So I'd like to introduce the panel members to you. Right beside me is Donna. And Donna had been with her husband John for 13 years when in the fall of 2003 he was diagnosed with metastasized prostate cancer and was told that his condition was terminal. Donna and John's roles as parents, grandparents, siblings, spouses, and friends were very important, and everyone worked together to help John through the 4 years of treatment which he endured. John succumbed to his condition in February of this year of 2008 when cancer entered his lungs. He left this world quietly and calmly in Donna's arms at their home with several of their children also present. Donna is here to share their story so that others may find strength from it. Beside Donna is Joanne. Joanne got her PhD in March of 2007 in healthcare administration, an MSc in epidemiology from McMaster University, and a BSc in physiotherapy from Witwatersrand University, Johannesburg, South Africa. She is also the wife of a prostate cancer survivor, and her PhD dissertation was on the after effects of prostate cancer treatments and how it affected the sexuality of both partners. She has had an article published in the May issue of Us Too, the American Prostate Cancer Association magazine, presented a paper at the Men's Health Conference in Victoria in March last year, and has done and is doing presentations to prostate cancer support groups on Vancouver Island. Now, beside Joanne is Sandy. Sandy has been married to Bill for 38 years, and together they have raised 2 children and now enjoy 2 grandchildren. Bill was diagnosed in 1999. He has had hormone therapy, surgery, and radiation, and now he is back on hormone therapy in order to treat bone metastases. Both are very active in the Central Alberta Prostate Cancer Support Group, and Sandy is pleased to be here to share their journey with prostate cancer. And now beside Sandy is Diana Brown. Diana is the wife of Rick Brown, and they've been together for over 20 years. They've been married since 1991, and they have a 15-year-old son. Diana is 44, and Rick is 55. Rick was diagnosed in the summer of 2006. He had a radical prostatectomy in 2006, and he is currently cancer-free. Both are now involved in a national nonprofit organization to raise funds and awareness for prostate cancer through the Ride for Dad. So I'd like you all to welcome our panel members today. And we're going to jump right into the questions that we have for the panel members. After we go through a series of questions that we've prepared, we're going to open up the questions for questions from the audience. There are two ways that you can ask questions at the end. One is to come on up and ask a question at the microphone, which will be moved forward. Alternatively, some of you may be more comfortable, depending on the nature of your question and how you feel about big groups, you may be more comfortable writing down your questions. And so John and Lauren will be coming around, grabbing pieces of paper off your table if you're interested in having a question read out. And just so you know who they are, John and Lauren are up at the front here. So look for their faces at the end if you want to write down a question. So our first question for our women today is, what were some of the major challenges that you faced in your experience with prostate cancer? Whoever wants to start.
I'll start. I think one of the biggest challenges for me as a wife was the anticipatory suffering and loss of my husband. The biggest thing for me was, how much is he going to suffer? How hard is this going to be for him? And I just didn't want to have him suffer. And I can remember phoning a friend of mine who had had cancer and had gone through treatment, and crying on the telephone about my fears around suffering. And she was able to reassure me that you know, there were ways to get through that, and that she had survived her treatment, and that it wasn't as bad for her as she initially thought it was going to be. And just hearing those words from her was a real encouragement to me. Also, I think we've worked really hard at keeping a positive attitude. When our second child was born, she had a life-threatening illness a month after her birth. And we went to the park to talk about a lot of what ifs. What if she didn't make it? What if she was left disabled? And one of the things that we promised each other during that conversation was that we weren't going to be bitter. That if we became bitter about her situation, that it would destroy us, and it would have a terrible impact on our children. And so we resolved to try and find the positives in any situation that we might face in the coming years. And that philosophy has held true through our time with prostate cancer as well. We have always tried to look for the positives in every situation that we've had to deal with, and that stood us in good stead. The other challenge we faced was telling our children. How do you tell your kids? And our son had just become engaged and was planning his wedding, and here we were having to tell him that his dad had just been diagnosed with prostate cancer. And we really didn't want to rain on his parade. And so it was difficult for us to share that news with him, but we did. And our son is a wonderful young man and was there to support us. Our daughter, this is the daughter who had been very ill as an infant, did end up with disabilities after her illness. And so telling her was challenging in a different way. We had to put it into language that she would understand and that wouldn't frighten her to death. She had struggled with depression in the past, and we didn't want to frighten her and cause her more psychological distress. But we felt that it was very important for her to know what was going on and to be honest with her. Another difficult thing for us was the recurrence. It's recurred twice now, and now Bill has bone metastases. And so there's always, with that comes the disappointment and a whole set of, now what do we do, questions. But all of these fears and challenges have decreased and increased in intensity over the years, depending on what was going on. And we, overall, I think, have been very grateful for the treatments that Bill has had and for the results that he's gotten from those treatments and for the support that we've gotten. So those challenges, we've found ways to meet them. And the other challenge that's always there is that time of waiting for test results. I think everybody in this room probably can identify with that and how tense that time is. And now our new challenge, because Bill has been diagnosed with bone metastases, is buying him time, and how do we do that?
I'd like to expand on that and also support some of the statements there in adjusting to the shortened lifespan that we knew was our future. We felt that some of the time we wanted to communicate with our friends and family, and some of the time we didn't. We wanted to reserve some privacy. I remember going to see Dr. John Robinson early in our diagnosis, and he acted as our counselor, and he said, "What is your major emotion at this time?" And I said, "Fear." He said, "Fear? Fear of what?" I said, "Fear of fear." and that's all I could explain at that time. So maintaining privacy and still involving other members was very important to us. The low energy levels, I think, was a major thing for us at first. But John did get involved in the exercise group, and it's amazing to think that the more you exercise, the more energy you have. And that's exactly what we found. So although it was a major challenge at first, we did embark on a very active lifestyle. One of my emotions earlier in the diagnosis was anger that we didn't pay more attention to the symptoms. It was an emotional roller coaster at all times. And John relied on me for information because he was often away on a contract away and not close to media, didn't have library service. So I would be the one going out and gathering up the books, gathering up the pamphlets, locating the places that we could go. And I remember phoning him one day and talking to him about having heard a song on the radio by Alan Jackson called "Live Like You Were Dying." Mm-hmm. So I said, "That's what we're doing."
Thank you.
My experience has been a lot less traumatic. I'm married to one of the most pragmatic men you could ever meet. My girlfriend's children call him Colonel No Sweat. He had, his PSA kept going up, and it took 3 biopsies, 1 a year before they found the cancer. And he just kept saying to me, "Until they find it, I don't have cancer." And having a physiotherapy background, I got him as fit. My friends thought I was a lunatic. I got him so fit that the poor guy was bouncing with energy all the time. And he was back on the tennis court after a radical prostatectomy in 6 weeks, because he was positive and I was determined he was going to be as healthy as you possibly could. In fact, one day I got so cross with him, he had a bag of urine after the prostatectomy, and I like going walking. We were in South Africa. Women do not walk alone, and so he came after me, and I was running, and he was hanging onto the bag, a full bag of urine, and I would say, "You're not supposed to be doing this. Go back home. I hope you die." Anyhow, we settled the disagreement, and I won as usual. So we've been positive all the way through, and it's now 7-8 years since he had the radical prostatectomy, and he's still cancer-free at this stage, or PSA negative, or whatever you want to call it.
I'm going to go to question 2.
Sure.
That's okay, Andrew?
Absolutely.
Okay. How did you respond to your husband's reaction to being diagnosed with and treated for prostate cancer is question 2. And I would have to say that at the time I was 42. I wasn't very happy about it. In fact, I was kind of shocked when we went into the oncologist's office and he gave us the diagnosis, and I kind of felt like saying, and? Now what do we do? Because there didn't seem to be a lot of direction. I was shocked and upset, and I have to admit that I was feeling quite hurt selfishly as well. I kept thinking, I'm 42, I can't handle this is too young, I can't deal with this. That was a huge mental block for me to deal with. We always knew that there was a possibility that Rick had suffered with an enlarged prostate for quite a long time, but it was always like, oh, you're not going to get cancer, oh, you're not going to get cancer. And he had gone through it was his second biopsy over, I think, a period of close to 3 years before he was diagnosed. And even when it hit, it was still like, holy cow, I can't believe this happened. So my reaction was not the greatest. I, of course, had a lot of fear as well, and I was scared, like, the first priority, is he going to survive this? And we both were lucky enough to be government workers, so we took 2 months off each from work. We had a good contract that we could do that, and we spent the whole summer of 2006 basically reading up as much as we could on treatment options and what direction we could go in. And because Rick's life expectancy, of course, was going to be over 10 years, most likely, that it was a difficult decision to make because, of course, we were looking at a radical, and there's a lot of sexual side effects to that, which was going to be a challenge for us as a couple who had been together for a very long time and had a very healthy and vibrant sexual life. So that was a really tough challenge for us. But in all, we have faith, and we persevered, and we're still together. It's been 2 years. So.
Thank you. We're going to continue on with question 2.
I think my initial reaction, my very, very first reaction when we got the phone call was to just put my arms around Bill and cry with him. And then I went into nurse mode. For those of you who are nurses, you know what that is. You just start thinking like a nurse. Well, we've been through tough times before. We're going to get through this one too. And the first thing we have to do is phone the Cancer Society. So we did. And they put us in touch with a gentleman who was also living with prostate cancer and who had just started a prostate cancer support group in Red Deer. And this gentleman was wonderful support for both Bill and I, mostly Bill at that point in time, and has become a very valued friend. He is still with us in this world, and he and his wife are very dear friends of ours, and we've been through a lot together, the 4 of us. I resolved that I would go to his doctor's appointments with him so that 2 pairs of ears are always better than 1. And when you hear the word cancer, I think your brain can shut down if you don't have somebody else there to hear what comes after those words. You miss out on some important information. And I was able to ask some questions because of my medical background that Bill wouldn't have thought to ask. And we also did a lot of research about options and what prostate cancer meant and what the side effects were going to be from the different treatments. We were very, very open with our family and friends about it. And I remember when our church family found out that Bill had been diagnosed with prostate cancer, some people didn't know how to talk to us. You know, they sort of pulled back a little bit, and this bothered Bill and myself a lot. And so we decided that he should write a letter and put it in everybody's mailbox at our church and say, I'm still me, I want to talk about this, I'm happy to talk with any of you about what's going on with me, please don't be afraid to come and ask me questions. And it was just amazing how that simple little letter turned everything right around. for the other people. And they then came forward and asked us all kinds of questions, and the men wanted to know more about it, and of course so did the wives. And we were able to encourage them all to take much better care of their prostate health. Each time it reoccurs, you know, you're faced with the disappointment and the sadness involved in that. And we've been through this twice now, 2 reoccurrences, and, you know, questioning what's going to work. Are we running out of bullets? And but you come to acceptance, and we'll deal with this one day at a time. And I think that's our philosophy. We live each day at a time, and we do what we can do. And we follow the instructions of the doctors and other people that we're talking to, like Dr. Robinson, and people who have suggestions for us. And I think that that's a really important thing.
We went into everything very rapidly, but one thing I did do, which horrified the treating physician, was we always went together to the appointments because of my medical background, and I took a tape recorder in. The doctor immediately asked me, because I had not lived in South Africa for a long time, and they thought I was American. And so the immediate reaction was, why? Do you want to sue me or something? And I said, no. I've been in this profession for too many years to know that when you hear bad news, both people shut off. And because my husband and I are both very opinionated, strong-willed people, I don't want to get into an argument with him. The doctor said or the doctor did not say. I had it on tape. So it helped us tremendously because we were in total shock. I was in total shock. And we could sit and listen to the tape in peace and quiet.
And I went into the fight mode as we talked about all the different emotions that occur when you've had a serious diagnosis. I think we went through denial, depression, and fear, but I think my most common mode was fight. I read and I researched, and I went in search of alternative treatments. I had already been having some experience with essential oils and Reiki and the Chinese herbal products. And so I encouraged John to come and explore this, and he did. And I think that he had 2.5 to 3 years of very high quality, smooth sailing with the combination of the supplements, the nutrition, and the health, Chinese health products, as well as the administration of essential oils in a form of massage. I read a book by Michael Lerner from the prostate library at the Tom Baker called Choices in Healing, and they talked about a lot of variety of treatments, and we even talked about going to Mexico and doing the colonics and some of the other things, which we never did. However, there was conversation. And also, I think another reaction that we had is reality therapy, i.e. we're planning our finances, and we decided between the two of us, maybe more me, we built a cabin, we built a guest house, we landscaped, we planted gardens, we bought trailers, we traveled, we just became active. Our reaction is still going on, I think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, well said. Thank you. What changes did you experience in your relationship with your partner?
Well, I can start with that one
Sure.
and pass it on. John was placed on hormone treatments immediately after his diagnosis. So the change was a depleted testosterone level and eventually no physical sex, no desire for sex. And I read a phrase that says, pressure trumps passion. And that was it for me. So I was in his same cage as he was. And of course, just a little going back, we were both raised Catholic. And so early in our lives, we were instructed in the values of chastity and abstinence. So here we were on our way. We substituted other activities. We talked more. We had a little coffee ritual. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd hear this, "Hey, coffee on?" And of course, that would be no time to do anything other than sit and have coffee. And if Tim Horton coffee was available, that would have been it. Or another typical reaction was Miller time, which was the summer activity. So we visited a lot with family and friends. We continued doing golfing tournaments and so on, as well as our puzzles. And we just became closer, and we shared our feelings a lot more. I think the back rubs, the massages, the reflexology, the television viewing that we did, we just got sillier, and at least I got sillier, and John would pick up on the signal and carry on with his charades. We played music while we traveled, and one of our favorite entertainers was Stompin' Tom Connors, and we'd sing along. And of course, John took the serious mode again, and he took responsibility and put everything in order. And there isn't a bill that I don't think I have at my fingertips.
Our relationship initially started off very strongly and remained that way throughout the treatment, after the treatment. And we didn't think any further than getting him fit and back on the tennis court, because that's one of his passions. So we worked very hard towards that, and we left the other things to take care of themselves as time healed. And that will be discussed a bit later.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Well, Bill had never been sick before this, except for the occasional bout of gout and tonsillitis, believe it or not. As an adult, he had some 3 or 4 quite difficult tonsillitis bouts, but really he'd been a very healthy man. And he had his own business, and which I worked alongside with him, as well as outside of the home. So for a time there, I became his caregiver when he had his surgery, and his main cheering section. And of course, that's remained over the years to a greater or lesser degree, depending on the status of his health. But then he's done the same for me too. In 2004, I collapsed with a ruptured cerebral aneurysm, and had a fairly lengthy recovery from that, and still am dealing with some side effects from that event. And so the roles reversed again, and he was my caregiver for a while. You know, we always did things together, from work to having fun. And now we were doing some new and different things together, like volunteering for Cancer Connections or Cancer Society, or involvement in the support group. And you know, all those things were really natural reactions for us, because, as I said, when our daughter was little and she was so sick, we did those same things. We found a support group. We got involved and volunteered with other families who had children with disabilities. And so those were a natural fit for us. Our sex life changed. There's no two ways about it. We'd had a very active and wonderful sex life, and very much enjoyed sex. But when Bill's testosterone dropped so low, then the desire was gone for him. And I think that when the desire is gone, it's a little easier to cope with, because there isn't quite so much frustration on the man's part. For me, it was fine. We did other things to fill that void. And I still think that we have a sex life. It doesn't involve intercourse, but we have a very intimate lifestyle between the two of us that involves talking about everything, going on dates, making sure that we have good quality time together where we can do pleasurable things that we both enjoy. We bought a trailer, we have it parked, we go out to that spot as much as we can. We enjoy just going for walks, talking about things that matter to us, spending quality time with our grandchildren and our children. All of those are ways of being intimate that don't have to involve sex, and yet they're deeply intimate. I think our commitment and love for each other has just become stronger and stronger through all of the things that we've faced in life. And I don't think we're lacking anything in our sexual intimacy other than intercourse. But for us, that's not the most important thing.
This is a tough question for me because we did not have the same experience, unfortunately. Even though we'd been together for 20 years, and I think we both felt that we had a very excellent relationship. Cancer took the stuffing out of us. Our reaction to it caused a great chasm, I think, between us. It was very difficult for us to communicate afterwards. It was very difficult for us to be intimate afterwards. Even barring the sexual stuff, which we weren't trying finally to a point, it really pushed us to the brink, literally. And that was one of the reasons that I got involved with Andrea, because she was doing a research project, and I'd sat in a prostate meeting and heard some of her results of women who have been through this, and I was like, this is not me. I've had the worst experience ever. Like, things have really sucked. And my marriage has almost gone down the tubes over this thing. And so I felt it was important to share that other side where, you know, even though we had a great relationship and we've gotten along and we never fought in our relationship, and we have very similar values and experiences and likes and dislikes, and we love traveling together, and we love food, and we love going and eating, and we had such great times in our relationship. And once prostate cancer came into it, though, it really affected us greatly. And we're just kind of starting to recover from that now. We've had a lot of counseling, which that in itself was a challenge. Down the page I could answer more about that, but finding somebody like John who we could openly discuss all those challenges that couples face with this disease was a gift. Finally find him, but that was a struggle too. We didn't have him for a long time in the very first part of Rick's diagnosis and treatment. We were struggling on our own and trying to cope with this. And we're talking about two people that come from a background. I have a BA in psychology, and my husband has a social work degree. You'd think we'd have figured it out, but we didn't. It just was a tough go, totally. So,
thank you. We're going to take a slightly different turn. We're going to come back to a lot of these issues, but my next question for you is, how did you and your partner cope with the side effects of prostate cancer treatments?
One of the side effects of the prostate cancer treatments, of course, was depleted testosterone because of John's hormone treatments. And over time, what happened, because he was metastasized, he was having a lot of skeletal pain, a lot of backaches, things of that nature. And so we started to explore some pain control options. And we learned some breathing exercises. We did some visualization. And we started into a prayer routine. We rested more and did things like I'd read to him in bed and just stay in bed longer. And the spirituality and prayer brought us through, I think, some of the big pain thresholds. How we coped.
Thank you.
I wish I knew at the time when before my husband had the operation what I know now. There is a Cheryl Height report on women's sexuality, and 70% of women never experience a vaginal orgasm. Just think about that. And the clitoral orgasm is a lot stronger. And we all know about masturbation, but many of the men in my study group did not realize that they could have an orgasm without an erection and without an ejaculation. Well, unfortunately, or fortunately, we had to work this out the hard way. But we have a very active sex life. We cuddle. We have orgasms, both of us. You can do masturbation. You can do fellatio. There are a whole pile of alternative things. There's no rhyme or reason why you should forego orgasm if that is important to you. And we tried all the gizmos. They weren't very spontaneous. We were pretty klutzy, even though I am a physiotherapist with the shots. I mean, they were pretty disastrous. So we gave that up in a hurry. The pump kind of worked, but I mean, when do you use the pump? When don't you use the pump? We found it a lot easier just to go the natural way, and as I say, we have a very good sex life, we have a good relationship, and we both get orgasms. I also should add that my group were in the low 67 was the average age of the men in the group, and 62 of the women. 83% of that group had sex 1 or twice a week before. 17% had it 2 to 4 times a week, and they were amongst the oldest. So don't ever be disillusioned that you're too old to have sex. And after treatment, 77% continued, 25% with AIDS, but 77% continued having sex or intimate relationships with their wives once or twice a week. 25% had to use aids. And as I say, the aids, the pumps, the shots, fellatio, mutual masturbation, and it can work.
I'm going to talk about side effects of all the different treatments that Bill has had and how we coped with them. But the surgery, it went well, and I think was fairly radical surgery in that I don't think there was any nerve sparing done because his cancer was right at the margins, and as a matter of fact, it was in the seminal vesicles, so it had to be fairly radical. But we were just grateful that he could have the surgery, and that the surgeon felt that it had gone well. And incontinence didn't last very long, and we just tried to make things work, but they never did very well as far as an erection was concerned. And so we resolved to deal with that in different ways. But also, along with that, Bill was taking hormone shots. And along with that, of course, comes the difficulty with erections, and also hot flashes. Well, glory hallelujah, I was there too. So we hot flashed together. and we sort of had these jokes between us, like there was a lot of joking around and laughing, and I was flapping my shirt and he was pulling his off, and you just get through it with a sense of humor. You change the sheets when you need to, and I think memory and cognitive function is another thing that Bill has found has been affected by hormone therapy, and maybe the surgery too, who knows. But I think that's a frustrating thing for Bill at times, and that his brain just doesn't work the way that it used to. Well, glory hallelujah, I'm there with him, because after my aneurysm, my memory and cognitive function aren't what they used to be either. So we have a lot of empathy for each other. And when we forget stuff, We understand about that with each other. What we try to do is get a lot of rest, do only what we can do and not overdo, and so that we don't get overtired. And then the cognitive function and memory things are better. It helps a lot. And we are constantly reminding each other, slow down, you're doing too much, take it easy, have a rest. I think the other frustrating thing that for Bill, the side effects, is the reduced muscle mass and strength. He was a woodworker. He was used to lifting heavy things and using his manly strength to do work, and that's been affected. Certainly has been affected. The sexual thing, we've basically gotten through it by talking about it, and that wasn't easy in the beginning. It was a tender subject, and you know, we just kind of stumbled around it until we finally got it out on the table. And Bill felt he didn't want to start something he couldn't finish, and so he was very stiff with me and didn't put his arms around me and hold me and hug me like he used to. And I was really missing that. But when we got it out on the table and talked about it, I was able to say that the finishing wasn't what I was worried about. I just needed to be held. I needed to still have that cuddling and the kissing. And once we got that out on the table and talked openly about it, things certainly became much easier for us. So we talk about everything, and we try to be patient with each other and understanding of each other, and I think that goes a long way to getting through any of this.
Can we go on to the next question?
Were there any positive things that came out of the experience with prostate cancer? And if so, what were they?
Okay. I have a whole page.
Okay.
Honest. Bill and I have talked about this many times, and there have been many, many, many positive things that have come out of this experience. First of all, we slowed down. We were extremely busy, involved, hardworking people, and this slowed us down, made us stop and smell the flowers. We grew and we learned a lot about change and about what that means and how you adapt to change and how change can be a good thing, not necessarily a bad thing, and how to find the good things in the changes that you have to make. We saw how much our friends cared about us. The support that we got from our neighbors, our friends, our church family, our family was just phenomenal. And in the course of this journey, we have made many, many new friends, wonderful people that we would never have met and we would never have had the pleasure of knowing and being involved with. Bill says, and these are his words, "I like the guy after cancer better than the guy before." He feels that he's more sensitive, more compassionate, more caring, more appreciative of his relationships and his friendships. And he feels so strongly about that he even wrote a book about his experience with cancer and some other people who were experiencing treatment for cancer as well. And it's been published, and we're into the second printing now. And I think that for Bill, expressing his feelings through his creativity has always been a way that he's been able to express his feelings, and that was one way that was very important to him, to share his experience with other people. After my health issues, we even slowed down more. And we moved from our rural home into Red Deer, a small city, and we found new things to be involved in. some new volunteer opportunities. I volunteer at a hospice, which is something I've always wanted to do, is work in a hospice environment. I never had the opportunity to do that in my career, but now I'm doing it as a volunteer. We make sure that we keep fun in our life. That's another positive. We've really focused on making sure that we always have something to look forward to. So it might be just going out for a cup of tea and having a conversation. It might be going on a getaway weekend. It might be going to a dinner theater or out to a movie, but we always make sure we have something to look forward to. Bill says that he's better at finishing projects and being more focused when he starts something to get it completed and finished. And he feels really good about that and finds it very gratifying. When I say we go on lots of dates, dates don't have to be elaborate. It can be going and grocery shopping together and then going out for a cup of tea afterwards. You know, it's what you make it, right? We have really worked hard to educate other men and their wives about prostate cancer and the importance of having DREs and PSA testing. And men, like that men's health initiative that we heard about this morning, amen to that. We just think that's so important. And at our church, when we were first starting out with this journey, I told every man in our congregation that if he could come to me and honestly tell me that he had gone to his doctor, had a DRE and a prostate-specific antigen test, I would give him a prostate cancer pin. And I think I gave away about 15 of them, so I thought that was very positive.
Yeah.
So those are some of the positive things that have come out of it for us, and there's probably lots more, but this has been far from a negative experience.
I can add a little to that, in that, in agreement, we spent more time together, i.e. it may have often been en route to a doctor's appointment or to a bone scan or to another therapy session. However, we laughed and we played and we did other things as we traveled. We took life more serious, or I'm sorry to say less seriously, in that there doesn't have to be a project that is finished today. We relaxed, went to movies, listened to music and theater and sports. But I think part of what was really important for us is we visited with family and friends. We both come from large families, and between us have 6 children and 10 grandchildren. We're a second marriage, so we actually even cleared the air with the former spouse and family, which was something that not everybody gets a chance to do. Let's say if you are suddenly killed, you don't get that opportunity to spend time to revisit and smooth out the old ways. We also met a lot of really wonderful people, and I think we were more attentive to them. Through Prostate and through Wellspring, which is an organization here that assists people who are dealing with cancer, all types of cancer, not only prostate cancer, but also their caregivers and the family members. We've met wonderfully talented and giving people. And I think we've learned more about health. We've learned more about nutrition. We've learned more about love. We learn more about God, and we learn more about spirituality, and we learn more about why it's important for us to contribute to the world.
Thanks.
I think for us this was the first time to really deal with a health problem, a serious health problem, and try to find solutions, even though they weren't readily available or you couldn't really see where you were going. We realized that we should make the most of our lives and live, forget about saying, I wish I could do, or we'll wait until we go ahead and do it. And for me, particularly, the lack of information was a real challenge to me at the time that my husband was diagnosed, and I've made it an issue to try and get across the information that we've learned to as many people as possible in any way or shape. So I'm doing a lot of presentations. Anyone who invites me, I'll go and do a presentation, and we call the presentation outer course versus intercourse.
I'd say that one of the most positive things that came out of this was our involvement with Red for Dad. I didn't know anything about prostate cancer before my husband was diagnosed, and afterwards knew too much maybe about prostate cancer. But just having that opportunity to try and educate the public and men in general about that important test, getting it done. I never even knew what a PSA was before. Now I tell everybody, get your PSA, get your PSA. And my husband too, he was a very enthusiastic motorcycle rider, has been ever since I've known him and way before I came into his life. And the ride, the National Ride for Dad, gave him an opportunity to put that passion to work to raise funds to try and combat this horrible disease. And getting involved with that organization just had us reach out and talk to a lot of different people, and even in organizations. We talk about it all the time. And that's been a great gift, because if it means just, even a handful of men who've gone out and got a test and early diagnosis and it saves their lives, and I think that's all been worth it for us, for sure.
What advice would you give other women who are going through this experience with prostate cancer?
I'll start again since I just finished. For me, I would have really liked to seen information when we first got the diagnosis about this is going to affect you greatly as a couple, and we totally recommend that you go and see someone for support, whether it be counseling through the Tom Baker Cancer Society in Calgary with John Robinson to get that counseling that you need, to garnering a support network. They don't tell you that in the office when they give you the diagnosis. They just tell you this is what your Gleason score is, and this is what we think advancement is, and you have 3 weeks to decide what you're going to do. And that was a tough go. And I really think we would have survived and done much better mentally and in our relationship if we had been given those resources right off the bat. But as it was, even doing a lot of our own research about what's out there and what you can expect and everything, it was only by some fluke that I happened to be at the Prostate Cancer Institute library one day, for the 4th time, and found a brochure, and it said that psychosocial services were available for individuals or couples that were facing cancer and the diagnosis and everything, and you could get counseling. I was like, oh, there's somebody who's an expert on this? Great. So we finally got to go at that point, but by that time there had been a lot of damage done, and there had been a lot of communication broken down, and it was difficult. So I really kind of can't believe that is not available when you walk into your doctors. It would have saved us a lot of grief, I'm telling you. And so that's one of the reasons I agreed to be part of the study that John and Andrew have been doing, and also to be part of the panel, because I think that needs to be out there. Those people that have not yet been diagnosed, I just pray that they find that information before it gets too bad for them, or whatever, that it's there for them, unlike us, where we had to really just found it just by chance, really.
I'd agree with that. I think if you don't have somebody to help you go through this, it's a much more difficult journey. And I think it's essential that you talk to somebody about it other than each other. I mean, it's important to talk to each other, we all know that, and certainly we've done a lot of talking between us, but we've also talked to other people, and it could be a trusted friend, it could be another woman or man who are going through this, and there are a number of ways to do that through Cancer Connections, a support group, or a psychologist like Dr. Robinson. But you have to know that those things exist, and so somehow we have to get that out there in front of people. whether it's through the doctors. When they give you the diagnosis, they say, here's some options, some places you can go to talk about your feelings and what this means for you. I think also something that I would say to other women is, be patient with your man. This is really a big deal for him, as well as for you. If we can talk about what frightens them the most and what frightens you the most and get that out on the table, I think that's a really important starting point to get the fears out on the table. They might be quite different. Your fears might be different than your man's fears. To listen and encourage each other, and sometimes we need help to do that. To do it all by yourself is a big task. I think it's important also to maintain some independence from one another in terms of finding things that you enjoy to do by yourself as well as with your partner. I know I enjoy going out for lunch or coffee with a girlfriend or other friends that I've worked with from the past, and volunteering. We do a lot of volunteering together, but I also have my own volunteering that I do. And so to maintain some independence from each other as well.
Joanna mentioned that she took a tape recorder into the doctor's office, and it was quite intimidating, but some doctors were even intimidated in having me there with my little notepad. But it was very important. I kept records and I kept a journal. And I felt that being a partner for John was very important. There were times where the both of us, neither one of us could truly remember what was said. So I asked for the printout. I wanted to see the bone scan report. I wanted to see the diagnostic report. And I would go home and go through it with a medical dictionary and phone my daughter-in-law, who is a registered nurse, and phone my sisters who are working in hospitals, and getting all the information decoded into human speak. And becoming informed by reading magazines, because I think magazines have a lot more current stuff. But then also following up with hard copy, if you can find anything, a referral or a bibliography on the back of your magazine article, and go to those hard copies to get the facts. And decide what's important and then do it. If it means traveling to Mexico to get an alternate treatment, I think do it. And don't sweat the small stuff. You know what? If the house doesn't get vacuumed, so what? And if the siding doesn't get washed down, too bad for the neighbors. And as we've just heard, maintain your own support. As a partner, I've always felt that I wanted to still have my girlfriends. I wanted to still spend time with my daughters doing other things outside the home. I wanted to be part of my church group. I wanted to join my curling club and my golf club, and go to theaters as well with John as to other things. And take a holiday. I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but my mother wasn't feeling well, and therefore that meant I had to go drive to Saskatoon and spend a week there. So during that time, during that drive, I'd play my tapes of information that I had. I'd play my musical tapes, and that way I would get some downtime. The pressure would be released. So I felt it very important to spend time with my girlfriends as well. And I want to encourage ladies to build those girlfriend relationships. They're so important. Thank you.
And I concur. If you can't use a tape recorder, write it down and definitely ask for all the reports so that you have them in hand, because then you can take your time to study them. You can look them up on the internet. The internet is the most marvelous place to find things. And if you can, if there's any psychosocial support or sex counseling, I would recommend strongly that couples go to that. It's very important to learn about that. The men we asked the men in the study and the women in the study to rate how much the erectile dysfunction impinged on their partner and on themselves. And when it came, and we asked the women to do the same thing. The men thought the women were much more upset about the lack of penetrative sex than the women were, and the women felt that their men were less upset than they actually were about the lack of penetrative sex. So you've got to get a discussion going, an ongoing discussion, and you've got to be open and honest with one another. Because this sexual thing is a very big issue, especially for the men. And the women seem to deal with it a lot better than the men think they do. So this is important. That discussion must be open.
In preparing for today's discussion, we have an entire list of questions, an entire page and a bit long. I'm cognizant of the time, and we want to make sure that we have time for your questions at the end. So what I'm going to ask of our panel members is if each lady will choose one question that they feel strongly or passionately about and choose that question to answer. And why don't we start with you, Donna?
I think I'll go to question number 8, which was, where did you find particularly useful information and support? I can't praise Prostate Calgary enough. Bob Shields and company always had factual, current information and the wildest jokes. We laughed at their jokes, and if there was nothing else of information that night, we at least had a good joke to go home with. And the warriors, which are the survivors, the ones that are on hormone therapy, invited the wives and the gentlemen with prostate cancer to be part of it, part of their discussion. And our questions were never looked at with anything other than total respect. The Tom Baker physical program activity was very helpful for my husband John, because not only did he start learning the benefits of activity, but he made close friends. And his friend Ed, I think, is here today. He loved them. The library at the Tom Baker was important for me because I'm hands-on, got to look it up, got to read it over 3 times at least before I truly believe it. My church, the spiritual support of the church was great, and the Hang Kang Chinese medicine on 16th Avenue, Dr. Ma. He could put a concoction together that you wouldn't believe, but it gave John energy and it gave him mental clarity that he needed. The Wellspring that I spoke about before, which is in Northwest Calgary, it's a psychosocial service as well, but they do things like Reiki and massage, foot reflexology. They do drumming activities, music, art, hikes, bike rides, mountain climbs. And you're doing that with people who have diminished forms of energy, people who maybe are confused or otherwise depressed or sad, and you're doing it, it brings you up into a stage of, I guess, gaining your fight back again. And of course, the psychosocial department of John Robinson was very, very important for me in giving me information. I have a hope that we will get to the last 2 questions in our questionnaire, because I think then we'll look at where we should go for the future. Thanks.
Joanne?
And I'm going to deal with one that's not dealt with very often. What was your experience with the healthcare system like? Well, in the group of 13 couples, only one physician asked what their sex life was like. The group suggested that you might, when you're going through this problem, you might make a list of your sexual activities and your sexual preferences and that sort of thing, and take them in and hand them to the treating physician. Because one definitely does need some support, and it's no good the doctors raising their hands and saying, oh, don't worry about it, impotence is a problem, but there are all sorts of things and we can deal with it, because that's not good enough anymore. So I think that we need to ask for a little bit more help, and also to remember that as you age, you lose your ability anyhow. 57% of men between the age of 70 and 75 have severe or total impotence, severe erectile dysfunction. Between the age group 65 to 70, 42% have significant erectile dysfunction, which includes impotence amongst that group. So it is a problem all the way along the line, not only for prostate cancer people. And you need to get all the information that you can. And you need to bug the healthcare system. Just don't let them get away with giving you non-responses.
Thank you. Sandy?
Just further to your response about the healthcare system, we're fortunate that we've had the same general practitioner for 32 years. He's a trusted friend. I don't mean that on a social level. We don't socialize with him, but he is a trusted friend as our physician. And he has gone to bat for us so many times and has been such a wonderful support to us through all of our health situations, not the least of which is Bill's situation. And he has asked us on numerous occasions, how is the sex life? Are you having difficulties? And so we've been able to talk to him about that. I think when I think about the healthcare system, I think the onus is on us a lot as consumers to push for what we need, to advocate for ourselves, to take responsibility for our own health and the care that we get. And that's easier said than done. I recognize that. And when you're sick, you have reduced energy for fighting battles like that. But I think we can't forget that doctors are humans too, and that they see a lot of people in a day. And so we need to do our part in looking after ourselves as well. I think we need to firmly but politely push when we have to, and maybe sometimes not politely push. But I think we have to push when we need to. We need to keep track of all our test results, be responsible for that. I know that Bill would have been in a lot more serious trouble a lot sooner if he hadn't been keeping track of his results, because he caught some stuff that our doctor missed. And that was because our doctor is a human being who is looking after hundreds of people. And Bill was watching his results and caught something before the doctor did. And it's a good thing that he did. I think it's important that no matter who the sick one is, if you're going for an important appointment, if you're going for a stressful appointment or test results, take someone with you to that appointment. Your spouse or one of your kids or a friend, another pair of ears, and another mouth who can ask some questions if you aren't able to. I think a good and trusted general practitioner is essential, and I know people are having difficulty these days in finding a general practitioner. That's a fact of life in our society, but it's really important that you do find one that you feel comfortable with. And if you don't like your doctor, if you don't feel comfortable talking with him, then you've got to find another one, because that is critical, that you feel comfortable enough with your doctor to be able to talk to him and pour out your heart to him. Because they're the ones that are going to push for you and advocate for you with the specialists and other people that you're going to be referred to.
Thanks, Andy. Diana?
I have to agree with Deb because I went to my GP after we had learned that, no, I think it was actually after Rick's treatment, and I said, Doc, can you give me something for my libido, because of course my husband can't, perform, and I don't want to put that pressure on him. And he's like, just go exercise. And I was like, that's your answer? I was really struggling, and he was not at all helpful. So, I mean, I've had my challenges with the healthcare side of it too, just, the initial diagnosis and not getting that information that we needed as a couple to cope with this disease. So I really would like to see some changes there. I'm hoping there's going to be more of a support network, either through prostate, possibly, more opportunities for women to have these discussions. I think it's very important. I felt very alone when this diagnosis came into our lives. I felt, who could I relate to? Who could I talk to? Who would understand? And I just felt that wasn't there. So that combined with psychosocial services, I think, would be a huge assistance to couples. And also accurate information. I mean, I was glad to see that we actually talked about the penal rehabilitation stuff this morning, because the stuff that we read initially was don't touch it, don't use it, and now it's like use it or lose it, right? Like that's the most accurate medical stuff out there right now, is you need to use it or you're going to have atrophy and collagen and scar tissue and stuff. And when we read stuff back 2 years ago, the stuff that was saying in the books was, just leave it, don't touch it, don't mess with it for a while, let it. And that was really inaccurate medical information. So I wish we had better access to better, more current information like we saw today, because that would have helped as well.
Thank you.